Hello everybody, and welcome back to another video. Back in another string of 2020 presidential election predictions. Um, Today we have an update on a race that I said a while ago. Klobuchar, the senior senator from the state of Minnesota, versus the incumbent president of the United States, Donald Trump. Klobuchar is seen as honestly, I see her as a pretty good candidate. Um, Basically, in my mind, she definitely has a Midwestern appeal that could help in the Frost Belt, especially your home state of Minnesota, Iowa even. Just this area is pretty good with Klobuchar. But regardless, she is not formally declared, but she is not also declined. She will let us know within a couple days, so within a couple days we'll see if this could potentially happen or not. But regardless, let's get this started. Obviously, we have the safe states, pretty much the same as usual. No real surprises among the safe states and the safe district. I thought about putting her home state in the safe, but ultimately I decided against it. Am I missing something? Yeah, Vermont. Alright, now we have Republican, Utah. We always talk about Utah. I'm going to wait to put Montana in the Republican column. Wait about that second district. All these states down here, not Georgia. Missouri I'll put in the safe column. Alaska. That's about it. Now let's go to likely leaning toss-up so that we can do this a little bit easier and actually make it possible. So at the end of the video again, I am doing the crucial 6. You watched my most recent predictions. What I have is I wait for the end of the video for the 6 states that would, in my mind, be the closest. And they're usually split. I try not to have all of the crucial 6 go for the same party. But regardless, let's do this. So likely GOP. I think Montana would be closer, but I still think Montana would go Republican despite having a senator from each party. Missouri I already filled in. Indiana I would say would be likely GOP. Georgia I believe also would be likely GOP in most of these, if not all of these scenarios. And now for likely Democratic, Minnesota, her home state. She was elected by a very comfortable margin, and Trump has a negative approval rating. So, in my mind, that's a recipe for success in Minnesota. Let's see where else we have here. Maine at large, yet again, District 1 is a lot bigger than District 2. So even if District 2 goes Trump by 50 points, it still may not be enough to get him to win the state of the state of Maine at large. Let's see what we got here. We also have Virginia. Virginia's less and less of a toss-up every single time we go around. So it's not really a candidate like Klobuchar. And Colorado is looking pretty Democratic, sticking to its Democratic identity. Now, up to the leaning Republican states that are not part of the Crucial 6, we have the second biggest prize in the Union, Texas. Tied for the third biggest prize, Florida. Both of these states, Texas, I believe, will be closer than Florida because Florida's the team that's more Republican than like, let's say, Texas Latinos or Arizona Latinos, Nevada. All of them vote more Democratic than Florida. So pretty much it comes down to exit polls showed Trump with a +3 approval rating in the state of Florida, despite the turnout for the Democrats being higher than Republicans. So that's a really good, promising sign for the Trump campaign in the state of Florida. Arizona, I'm also putting narrowly in the Trump column. This is ultimately down to she doesn't have the Southwest appeal. She doesn't have the Latino appeal as much as someone like Beto O'Rourke would. She could turn out Latino voters, but not nearly in numbers as other candidates could. Nebraska's 2nd district, I believe, would stay in the Trump column, but also very, very narrowly, because she definitely has that Midwestern appeal. That's also why I put Montana in the likely column instead of the safe column, like I always seem to put it. Now let's go on over to the leaning Democratic states before our crucial 6. I almost forgot to put in North Carolina. North Carolina, I believe, would stick with the president in this case. They usually like more conservative candidates than anything else, so it would make a lot of sense. Now in the state of Nevada, if the 2018 races are any projection at all for 2020, Trump is dead in Nevada. So yeah, that would not be a good thing. Right now we're at 228 to 235, Trump with the slim lead. Now we are, oh wait, I almost forgot. Maine's 2nd, I believe, would go very slightly for Klobuchar. This is because partially the Republican incumbent in the 2nd district got voted out. And Trump is starting to lose approval in the state of Maine. So overall, I think it could be very, very, very close. But I think Klobuchar ultimately could flip the district. Now we are on our crucial 6, the Frost Belt, with the exception of Indiana, Iowa, and the state of New Hampshire. I'm going to fill these in by margin of victory. I'm going to say the biggest margin would be New Hampshire. Klobuchar is a stronger candidate than Clinton. Neither one of them have Northeast. I would think that New Hampshire could stay in the Democratic column. Ohio is probably the next biggest margin. The state of Ohio was not really that tough. Trump has a positive approval rating. I believe this is the only positive approval rating for Trump as of right now of these 6 states. However, I think it will be close, but ultimately Ohio would go for President Trump. Next up, by margin, I believe we would have a flip. Wisconsin going into the Democratic column. Wisconsin, along with the rest of the Rust Belt, is starting to turn away from the president. And right now, I think that Wisconsin would vote, especially with someone with the Midwestern appeal. Like, see how close it is among so many other factors. Ultimately, I think it would turn back to where it was a blue stronghold for a long time. The next state I'm going to call is the state of Iowa. Iowa and Ohio vote together, even though Iowa doesn't really approve of the president as much as maybe he would like it. Iowa usually does end up backing Republican candidates. They stuck with Obama for a while, but they flipped with the rest of with Iowa. Well, Ohio and Ohio flipped together. And ultimately, I think they'll stick together in this race. That brings us to our closest two, Michigan and Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, right now, I would have in the Democratic column for Senator Klobuchar. This ultimately comes down to the fact that Pennsylvania's statewide races were completely swept by Democrats. Pennsylvania is starting to turn away from Trump more and more. If they get out the turnout high enough, which I think Trump will get Democrats to turn out more than they did in 2016. And with a good candidate like Klobuchar, I do believe that Pennsylvania would flip back to the way it's been for a while. And for all the marbles, for the presidency of the United States, it comes down to the state of Michigan. This would not surprise me at all if on election night it would come down to Michigan. Overall, you have to weigh the appeals, the fact that the suburbs in Michigan vote more Republican than even rural areas vote Republican more than most places. But especially the suburbs are very surprising. Um, but regardless, I do believe the state of Michigan and the presidency of the United States would go to Senator Klobuchar. My reasoning for this is Michigan, of all the Rust Belt states, are disapproving of the president the most, even though I've heard accounts that Trump is doing very well in the suburbs. Ultimately, if the Democrats put up, that's the biggest thing. If you remember one thing from this video, the Midwest, if you can get someone, the Democrats can get someone with a Midwestern appeal, someone who can appeal to these voters, I think they're going to win. There are a couple ways to victory, and this is probably, in my mind, the best and easiest way for Democrats. Do you agree or disagree? Tell me in the comments below if you haven't already. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, join us on the subreddit at JPC Reddit. And stay safe, and I will see you all later.